Hi everyone, welcome back. So glad you could join us. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, we learn of the story of David and Bathsheba. Most of us know the story and have committed it to memory. But there is one scripture I want to focus in on that I believe many of us, especially during this troubling time in history, need to be reminded. We learn in 1 Samuel 13:14, and again it is repeated in Acts 13:22, that David was considered by God to be a man after God's own heart. He was someone that God knew, wanted to please him and do the right thing. But David wasn't perfect, and he didn't always do the right thing, as we learn in the story of he and Bathsheba. David made a mistake. He allowed his fleshly desires to cloud his judgment and take over his desire to please God, and as a result, there were consequences for his sinful actions. That consequence was the loss of his son to death. Now, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone or saying that if a person died of COVID-19 or cancer or any other reason, it was a result of his or her sin. That's not the point of this message. What I do want to focus in on today is how David handled the death of his son. You see, during the time of devastation over the eventual loss of his son, David did everything in his power to plead for his son's life. Many of us do the same thing when we are faced with the death of a loved one. He put on sackcloth, covered himself with ashes, he fasted and he prayed. He begged God to spare his son's life. Sound familiar? All to no avail. But it was what happened next that really is important. The real message today is found in 2 Samuel 12:20. Many of us have begged God to spare the life of a loved one to no avail, and many of us continue to live in bondage to the despair we experienced. But when David heard the news of his son's death, he immediately got up. He took a shower. He anointed himself, put on clean clothes, and he came into the house of the Lord and worshipped. He didn't let the despair of the situation destroy him. He chose not to walk away from God, but to run closer to him. Death, as many situations in life, provides choices. In the face of tragedy and despair, what will you choose today? Will you choose to turn your back on God and blame him for your loved one's death? Or will you choose, like David did, to get up, dust yourself off, and worship the one that can bring peace, joy, happiness, and restoration to your life? The fact of the matter is that everyone will die one day. But for those of us that believe in Jesus and choose to follow him, the Bible tells us we will have everlasting life. There is no greater place to be but in the presence of Jesus. Blessings.